Hey there, sober ladies. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. We are going to be talking about 5 ways to heal your shame. In a previous video, I talked a lot about what shame is and how it can show up in a very subtle way. And I kind of went over a variety of different ways that can happen. If you missed that video, I would encourage you to go back and check it out. And then definitely check out today, because now we're going to talk about what do we do about it. This is a topic that's sort of sensitive, right? Nobody really wants to get into all of this, but it's important because for most of us, it's something that's been a part of our life, whether we really want to admit it or not. So I want you to remember that sobriety is only the beginning of the work, right? The healing and the emotional sobriety never really ends. We really pick that up as we step into those later months to closer to a year of sobriety time and really begin to learn how to function as a proper, healthy, well-adjusted adult, right? So we can really begin by starting with ways to heal our shame. So the first step is to accept. Acceptance is our actual first step, right? Acceptance means acknowledging the truth that a problem actually exists. So really identifying the problem and then acknowledging that it exists. Acceptance of a problem or a situation or a person serves as a catalyst for change, and then it demands action. It isn't simply a casual statement like, oh, I guess I have to accept it. It's not really like that. It's not an excuse to give up, but rather a call to intense action to deal with the problem. For example, when you realize, or maybe you were told, that you had an addiction, you accepted the harsh reality of your substance abuse problem. And then you began to determine a course of action like 12-step programs, smart recovery, maybe it was therapy or coaching, and then you dove in, right? You started doing the work of helping you deal with your substance abuse problem. If someone you care about has made a decision to end a relationship and you're heartbroken and depressed, acceptance of this situation is the first step in finding solutions for your pain. Acceptance does not mean that you're saying that it was okay, right? It doesn't mean that you weren't sad about the situation or that you weren't hurt. It's simply an acknowledgement of the truth and then taking action towards solutions. Step number 2 is showing yourself compassion. It is time to let yourself off the hook, okay? For all of those bad things that have happened to you in the far or even recent past. This means forgiving yourself of your choices. That's basically what I'm saying. Beginning to show yourself some compassion through forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is a process, and it looks a lot like acceptance and incorporates your spiritual connection and a letting go opportunity, right? So when you're compassionate towards yourself, and then you begin to do the acceptance work, and then you can start to look at forgiveness. This is, I'm sorry, one second, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty. Let me get myself back online here. Technical difficulty. All right. So, okay, so when you're compassionate with yourself, you can heal the pain that's caused the hurts that you've lived through. Does this make sense? So you begin to build self-love and empathy, and that empathy is for yourself and for others. So then when you make a mistake, you can be cautious with your thought patterns and your reactions. You want to make sure you check in on how you treat yourself when those times occur, right? Because we all do make mistakes. We have incidents, accidents, mess ups, we forget stuff. So instead of beating yourself up, I want you to take a minute to remind yourself of all of the good things you have done that day or maybe that week or in your whole life, right? You don't need to excuse the behavior, but you can acknowledge the challenges that led to it, right? You can acknowledge that maybe you were overtired, or maybe you weren't being careful when you were driving and you had an accident, or maybe you just didn't use proper time management and so you couldn't get a situation done at work on time. So you can identify those things and then you can take action steps towards changing them. So you can give yourself some encouragement along the way, kind of like you would with a friend. You really want to view yourself as your own best friend. It sounds cliche, but it is how we truly can be compassionate and love ourselves. This is what we're working towards in building that emotional sobriety. So you want to use compassionate phrases that will be comforting and supportive when these times come up that could cause shame. So I want you to check in. Number 3 is, what are your defenses? It's very common that when we're hurt or scared to use defense mechanisms to shut off our shameful feelings. Sometimes deflection is a way of using, with defending ourselves when confronted with a shameful situation. We might want to lash out at someone who points out a wrongdoing. Or when like maybe someone has, when we've committed like not a crime, but like when we've done something or we've wronged somebody, we might want to kind of go back at them and be like, well, you always do this, or when you do that, like that same thing that you just did, you always scream and yell, or things like that. That's kind of like a deflection. It's a way of taking the attention off of you and putting it on the other person. Perfectionism is often used with shame because if you are perfect, no one can criticize you, right? So that's striving to get everything right, do all of the things, get everything done on time, get perfect grades, show up all the time. It's exhausting, right? It is really not realistic, but it can lead to shame. It can be a defense mechanism for shame, because then you won't get like any kind of feedback that's negative. Over apologizing or compliance is often a shame response as well. So we assume that others are right and we are wrong. So we say, I'm sorry frequently, right? And conversely, deep shame can actually prevent you from apologizing. So if you've ever pursued something and then failed, it can create feelings of shame, which can really feel paralyzing and prevent you from trying things in the future. Procrastination is a defense, because if you just delay or never do things, you can't fail, right? And therefore you won't feel the shame. So I want you to pay attention to certain behaviors you notice regularly and how they might be used for covering up shame. Number 4 is, where do you feel it? Now, this is something that I talk about a lot when we are building emotional sobriety, because our emotions are not just in our brain. They live in our bodies as well, and so they show up in a very physical way. Very often that we don't even notice them, because we're so like accustomed to the way our bodies are working and the way they feel on a daily basis that we don't even notice. In the beginning stage of learning how to do this more, I want you to just start to become aware of where your emotions show up in your body. That's like the beginning part of this. So for a few minutes a day, or maybe even a couple times a day, I want you to quietly bring your awareness to your body. Now, this can be done in privately in your own head. So if you're sitting in a business meeting, or maybe you're at a doctor's office, or you're at your kid's school, or whatever you're doing, you can just quietly bring awareness to your entire body and do what I call a quick body scan. You can scan your body starting at the top of your head and kind of moving through all of your parts all the way down to the bottom of your feet. And you want to look for any areas where there are physical sensations or numbness. Now, some things you might feel that are normal for you, right? There might be tension or an injury, and you can just notice those things. If you always have a chronic shoulder issue, then you can just know that's not necessarily coming from shame or emotion right now. It's just something that you have. But other things might be very subtle, like tightness in your chest, or a pit in your stomach, or maybe numbness in your arms, or even headaches. So this practice just is an exercise in awareness of your body and kind of making friends with how your feelings show up in physical form. When you become aware of these sensations, the heaviness begins to lift and it literally carves that road toward freedom. And lastly, number 5, what are you afraid of? This is a question I think that should be asked often of ourselves anytime we have any kind of discomfort coming up. Shame and fear really go hand in hand. So this question, what are you afraid of, is going to be something you need to hold close to your chest. Maybe you're afraid that people are going to see you for who you are. Maybe you're afraid that if they do see you for who you are, they won't like you. So at the same time, you're afraid of being alone, right? As you go through this process, get to know your personal fears a little bit more. Very often it is subtle and unique. It's not usually big, alarming things like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid of snakes or spiders. Usually we are either afraid of not getting something we want or losing something we already have. So if I pursue my dream of starting a business and it doesn't work, people might not love me anymore. Or if I put myself out there and look for a partner, I could get rejected. And not to mention, all relationships of any kind are a risk at some level, because personal relationships always have the risk of being harmful. Let yourself practice this in small ways by opening up and being vulnerable, kind of allowing the fear to come in. As you do that, notice how you feel in your body. Allow it to happen. Just let it be. Give it permission and let it be okay. This gives you something to work with. And when you really drill down on it, you're going to know what the core fear is. So if you're feeling a lot of fear and you can say to yourself, what's going on with that fear? Why is that? Or what if that happens? Then this. And then what? And then what? And then what? When you ask those continuous questions, you get down to that core fear. And it might be something like fear of financial insecurity. It might be fear of being rejected. It might be fear of being alone. But some of those you might not get to unless you drill down really hard. I really want you to take the time to digest these 5 ways. Shame is kind of a big thing, right? We all have it, and no matter how long you've been sober or how much therapy you've had, this is going to show up in these subtle ways. And maybe for you it's in big ways, and it needs a little bit more attention. This is some of the big work that we do in the Sober Freedom Transformation. If you're not familiar with that, it is a one-on-one 8-week coaching program where we intensively look at all of these parts of emotional sobriety together and really hone in on the ways that you can heal yourself to try to catapult you into the next level in your recovery. If you're interested in learning more about that, I'll leave the link below and you can check it out. I will talk to you guys soon.